is going to bring, and that disaster is the death of the firstborn. And this is what Adonai had spoken to Moshe from the beginning, from the burning bush incident. And now we are, from the time of the burning bush incident, we are about 8 months later. It took 8 months for the 10 plagues, about 8 months for the 10 plagues to occur. And now, because Pharaoh has hardened his heart by the bidding of Adonai, Adonai says, one more disaster I'm going to bring. One more thing. And if we could go forward to chapter 11, verse 1. Then Yahweh said to Moshe, one more disaster shall I bring on Pharaoh and on Egypt, just one. And then he said, he will drive you out. And this was going to be the death of the firstborn. And before Adonai does that, one of the things, and we'll get back to that beginning next week, but one of the things that Adonai does is he introduces the mechanism, in a sense, of deliverance, of redemption. Now, deliverance, salvation, Yeshua, where we get the word Yeshua, is brought about by payment, not by a gift. Adonai does not give salvation. He pays for salvation, and after he pays for it, then he gives it as a gift. But remember, when we say that our salvation is a free gift, it's a free gift to us. But remember, salvation costs. Atonement costs. There is a payment to be had. Apart from rabbinic theology today that started in a temple-less Judaism after the destruction of the temple in 70 A.D., the Jewish nation was left without a temple, and so they developed a temple-less Judaism, which is a Judaism of works. But remember, the works righteousness in Judaism today and in much of Christianity is from a temple-less, a post-temple doctrine and post-temple theology. What we need to do is go to the beginning. The sacrificial system was never intended to pay for sin. In theology today, it's used as that. But the sacrificial system was never intended to pay for sin. The first sacrificial, or the origins of the sacrificial system, is a grace system. Sacrifice is grace, not works. Because the first sacrifice that occurred was when Adonai performed the first sacrifice. And he said to Adam and Eve, the day you eat of this fruit, you will die. In Hebrew, it's in dying you will die. They sinned. They rebelled. And that brought death upon mankind. Through one man, sin came into the world, and death through sin. And man died in his tripart nature. Every one of us is tripart. We are body, soul, and spirit. We see each other. We see each other's body. We see how tall they are, how skinny they are. We see how light or dark they are. That's the body. But deep inside that man is a spirit. And in between that body and that spirit is the soul, your mind, will, emotions, who you are in your thinkingness, in your life as you respond. And the body with its senses is how you interface with the world around you. Your spirit with your sense is how you interface with Elohim. And I am this soul that permeates my body through my blood and through my whole being. And the moment that Adam died, his spirit died. All of a sudden, communication, his interfacing with Adonai was broken. And Adonai had to interface with Adam through his soul and his body. His spirit, his soul began the process of mental, emotional, all this breakdown. And of course, his body, 920 years later, his body succumbed to the death process and he died. But as soon as he sinned, there had to be a solution, there had to be a fix. And that fix is Yeshua, who died as the lamb from the foundations of the world. That fix is Yeshua. Fix wasn't a sacrificial system, it was Yeshua. And from the beginning, Adonai, who was the first sacrificer, he was the first one to sacrifice by grace through faith, took a lamb. Now we know it was a lamb because Adonai is the same yesterday, today, and forever. He would not choose definitely an unclean animal. He's always chosen lamb. Yeshua was the lamb of Elohim who takes away the sin of the world. Therefore, it was a lamb. And Adonai sacrificed that lamb. Think of it. An innocent lamb that had done no wrong, had nothing against itself. Innocent blood was shed. Innocent blood was shed so that Adam and Eve could be covered of their guilt and shame. And Adonai slayed that lamb, killed that lamb, sacrificed that lamb. Blood was shed, and he gives them these coats, these clothings, these covering, kepurim. And by grace, he gives it to them. They didn't deserve to be covered, but by grace, Adonai covered their guilt and shame. The moment they reached up and received the gift of Adonai, the free gift, the unmerited gift of grace, and they put them on, they were covered. But remember, it was a free gift to Adam and Eve. But it wasn't free. It costs. It cost blood. In fact, it cost the life of that little lamb. A lamb died. An innocent lamb died because of their sin. Let me tell you, if that's not grace, I don't know what grace is. That your sin is covered through another's death. And Adonai began that process of what we call vicarious atonement. We don't just believe in atonement, we believe in vicarious atonement, which means somebody else dies for you. See, we don't atone for our own sins. We cannot pay. We cannot do anything, cover our own sin. Oh, yeah, we tried covering many times. As we said, before Adonai did that, Adam and Eve started the first church of the fig leaf. The first church of the fig leaf. That's what people do. That's what we all do. No matter how young little kids are, watch them when they do something wrong. What do? They go hide it. You know. How many stuff do little kids do? And they try to hide it. They try to hide it under the bed. They try to do this. They hide stuff. That's all of us. That's inborn since the time of Adam to us. And now Adonai doesn't want to atone, redeem a man. Now that man, through Noah, through Shem, through Abraham, Isaac, Yaakov, through the 12 sons, has now become a nation. And as a nation, our ancestors were enslaved in Egypt. And the same story holds true. Just like Adam was enslaved to sin and death, we are enslaved to sin and death. The whole world is enslaved to sin and death. Our nation was enslaved to sin and death, in a sense, through Pharaoh and his taskmasters. And Adonai wanted to redeem again. Another picture of redemption. Another picture of what Adonai is willing to do to save us. Adonai says, one more disaster I'm going to bring. The death of the firstborn in Egypt. The death of the firstborn that are in Egypt. What that means is Israel and Egyptian. Egyptian and Israel. Anyone that is firstborn in Egypt must die. Everyone. Everyone. Can you imagine Adonai pronounced sentence on Pharaoh and the Egyptians, but also on our own boys, on our own firstborn. But there was a way of escape. And that way of escape was once again the blood of a lamb. The blood of the lamb. The house that had the blood, the firstborn in that house would live. By the way, sentence for Egypt and Israel, redemption for Israel and Egypt. If they would have put blood, their firstborn would have lived. And so Adonai gave us this feast, this moed, this appointed time to redeem our firstborn. And it begins in Exodus 12, so if you will go with me to Exodus 12. And it says there, Yahweh said to Moshe and to Aharon in the land of Egypt, this month is to be the first of all others for you, the first month of your year. Okay, which means that this month, according to the Hebrew, the first month is Rosh Hashanah. Everybody say Rosh Hashanah. Rosh Hashanah means the head of the year. The head of the year. And the month of Aviv, the month of spring, the word Aviv means spring, to spring up. April is the month of springing up. automatically things come up. Just like fall. In fall, automatically everything what? Falls. In spring, everything automatically what? Springs up. And so this month, the month of spring, is to be the first month of your year, the head of the year, the Rosh of the year. The biblical Rosh Hashanah is in end of March, beginning of April. The end of March, from the first new moon in beginning of March, April, is that month, the month of spring. It is not in Yom Teruah. Judaism has it wrong there, by the way. One of my philosophies, one of my truths is, and this is very, very profound, okay? So please write it down. This is a very profound mathematical equation. 2 plus 2 equals 4. Everybody knows that, right? 2 plus 2 equals 4. You could do it in Spanish. Dos y dos son 4. You could do it in any language. Very profound, very important. That's truth. That's a mathematical truth. A lie or a false deduction would be 2 plus 2 equals 5. Or 2 plus 2 equals 3. 2 plus 2 does not equal 3. 2 plus 2 does not equal 5. In other words, according to Torah, you cannot add or take away. We're told that constantly. Do not add, do not take away. You shall not add to Torah. You shall not take away, subtract from it. One of the problems that we have, as you're going to see here, is that both the Judaisms and the Christianities that are out there are constantly adding and taking away from Torah. And it would behoove every one of us to make sure that we are not legalistic, but careful that we do not add and take away. And so the Judaisms have added, taken away Yom Teruah and made Yom Teruah Rosh Hashanah. That's not true. This is Rosh Hashanah. And then it says, on the 10th day of this month, each man, each what? Each man. Now remember, according to Torah. In fact, I want all the men to stand. All the men just stand. You are Israel, men. You are Israel. And as Israel, you are responsible to bring to your families. The pastor's not responsible. The rabbi, the priest, the right reverend, the cardinal, the pope, the chief rabbi is not responsible for your family. You are. You are. I am not responsible for your family. I'm responsible for you. In fact, Scripture says that I will get a double judgment if I don't teach you right. Scripture says that I am called to teach you men. You are my congregation. The men of this congregation are my congregation. Your family is your congregation. Your family is your congregation. That means even the family that you've had or other children that are out there, you are responsible as a man for them in biblical times. Stay standing. In biblical times, it says there, each man must take an animal from the flock. So if we were living in the times of our temple, every one of you would be responsible to go to your flock or go to the flock of someone and purchase an animal that you will sacrifice. You may take your seats. So now the responsibility is on your shoulders. As men, you are responsible for Passover. Each man must take an animal from the flock, one for each family. One for each family, uno para cada familia. One animal for each household. If the household is too small to eat the animal, a man must join with his neighbor nearest him as the number of persons required. You will take into account what each can eat. So sometimes if you have a small family, 2 or 3 families could unite together. But technically it's just one per family, by the way. There is no such things as congregational Passovers. It is not the responsibility of the congregation to have a Passover. So if someone invites you to their congregation for their Passover, say, I can't, because I have to have one at my house. There is no such thing, and all kinds of synagogues and even churches are having congregational Passovers. The problem with that is they go to the internet and find out what a Passover is, and they do a rabbinic Passover, which is not kosher. Rabbinic Passovers are not kosher. Why? Why are rabbinic Passovers not kosher? Because 2 plus 2 does not equal 5. 2 plus 2 does not equal 5. A kosher Passover is 2 plus 2 equals 4. Why is Holy Communion, the Mass, Eucharist, or whatever the Christians call it, why are those not kosher communions? Because 2 plus 2 does not equal 3. So Judaism adds, Christianity takes away. So it will behoove us again to study the Scriptures, because it is in the Scriptures that Yeshua Paul tells us to go to the Scriptures and find out what the Scripture says. Not what theology has come up with in the last 2,000 years in the Judaisms and in the Christianities. And so it says, number 5, verse 5. It must be an animal without blemish, a male, 1 year old. You may take it from the sheep or goats. Both are kosher. You must keep it till the 14th day of the month, when the whole kehilah of the community of Israel shall slaughter it between the 2 evenings. So the lamb you choose on the 10th of the first month, you are to keep it from the 10th to the 14th. You don't just go buy a slab of meat on the 14th, on the 13th. You buy the lamb and you keep it. And the little children wash it. And for 2 or 3 days, that little lamb becomes a pet. And for these days, this cutie little lammy, you love it, and it's so innocent. But remember, Passover is going to cost. It's going to cost the life of this cutie, of this furry little, beautiful little 1 year lamb that has never done a single thing but bah, 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 bah. And then you're supposed to kill it. And on the first Passover, and only on the first Passover, it says, some of the blood must then be taken and put on the two doorposts of the lintel of the house where it is eaten. That was only in the first Passover. In the second Passover and subsequent Passovers till 70 A.D., the lamb was brought to the temple, sacrificed at the temple. The priest would get the blood of your lamb and sprinkle it on the altar. You'd go take the lamb home and roast it. But on this first Passover, you would get that blood and put it on the lintel and doorposts on the mezuzot. And it says, you shall slaughter it between the 2 evenings. The 2 evenings is between sundown, when the sun goes down, and when you see 3 stars. You see 2 stars, and then you look around, and when you see the 3rd star, that's twilight. Some of your Bibles do say you shall do this at twilight. But the Hebrew says between the 2 evenings, between when the sun goes down in your horizon and it's still light. And then you wait, depending on the geography, the place in the world, you wait, and sometimes it's a little longer. And now we have, instead of seeing the lights because of light pollution, all of a sudden, when it gets dark, that's when the street lights automatically turn on. So just count 3 street lights that turn on and it's twilight. It says, that night the flesh is to be eaten, roasted over the fire. It must be eaten with unleavened bread, bitter herbs, a boiled egg, some parsley, and some charoshet, and I'm sorry. 2 + 2 is not 5. What does it say? You will eat it with unleavened bread and bitter herbs. Unleavened bread and bitter herbs. Unleavened bread, in fact, Hispanic Jews don't have a problem because we call that tortillas and salsa. Tortillas and salsa. That's what we use. In fact, I make my own unleavened bread tortillas. And we'll teach you men how to do that. I'll actually have a class on how to make unleavened bread tortillas for the men. The women already know how to do that, but it says roasted over the fire. But head, feet, and entrails. So when they did it, they roasted the whole lamb. They took everything, head, feet, and entrails. Entrails, by the way, is the menudo. Okay, menudo. So, I'm sorry, that's what it says. Doesn't your Bible say menudo? Entrails? Okay. That is not 2 + 2 = 5. That's 2 + 2 = 4. Because menudo is entrails. Okay, I'm not adding or taking away. I'm just literally translating. It says, do not eat any of it raw or boiled, only roasted. You must not have anything left over till morning. Whatever is left till morning, you shall burn. You shall eat it like this, with a girdle around your waist, sandals on your feet, a staff in your hand. You will eat it hastily. It is a Pesach in honor of Yahweh. That night, I will go through the land of Egypt, and I will strike all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, man and beast alike. I shall deal out punishment on all the gods of Egypt. Ani Yahweh. The blood shall serve to mark the houses that you live in. When I see the blood, I will pesach you, and you shall escape the destroying plague when I strike the land of Egypt. And so he says, I will pesach you. The word pesach that we translate Passover does mean Passover, but it means a Passover that protects. The word Pesach really means protection. And what it is Adonai said there is an angel of death. Adonai is not the angel of death. He's going to send this plague on all the firstborn of man and beast in Egypt. He's going to send this plague to kill because of Pharaoh and his service to his gods. But he says, you will kill this lamb, this 1-year-old lamb. The blood you shall put on doorposts and lintels of your house, and you will eat this. When you eat of that, that is what's called a koinonia, a communion sacrifice. A communion sacrifice, we're going to learn later on in Torah. Sometimes some in Leviticus is called a fellowship offering. And same word in the Greek, koinonia, means a communion where when you're eating of this, of that, and you're eating of the animal, of the blood that is there, then when Adonai sees the blood on your house, he will come between you and the destroying angel, and he will come in between you and the destroying angel, and he will protect the firstborn in that house. That's a vicarious sacrifice. That's a mediatorship. He is the mediator. He is in between death and life. And he gives life if he sees the blood. When I see the blood. If he doesn't see the blood, then that destroying angel will not have a mediator, will not have blood. And all of a sudden, death will come to the firstborn in that house. Now, how many are firstborn, male or female? Can you imagine if you're a firstborn and this was Egypt and you had blood? If you're a firstborn and you didn't have blood, you'd be a dead duck. Just think of it. But Adonai, by grace, when Adonai says, kill a lamb, put the blood of the lamb on the doorpost, and you won't die. Can you imagine that? That's illogical. That's not logical to us. So it had to be something that Adonai was doing by faith. So when Adonai says, I'm going to provide the rescue, I'm going to provide the deliverance, I'm going to provide the redemption, and he said, take a lamb, and you get that by faith, and you put it, not understanding what you're doing, but just by faith, obeying what he says, and you do it, all of a sudden, you're alive. By grace through faith again. Vicarious. What did that 1-year-old little lamb do? Nothing but be cutie again. Like the one with Adam. Like Yeshua himself. A perfect lamb. Without blemish. And that's redemption. He bought us out. He bought our people out by the blood of the Lamb. We are bought and paid for. Now watch this. Verse 14. This day is to be a day of zakaron, zakaron, zakaron. A day of remembrance, a day of memorial for you. By the way, I wish especially English translators would be from Texas. Anybody here from Texas? Okay, all you Tejanos? Y'all. How do you say y'all in Lubbock over there? Another Lubbock guy there. In Hebrew, it's you plural or y'all. Ustedes. It's you all. It is a Passover. It is a day of remembrance for you all. And by the way, later on, he's going to say, and this you all is not just for you all here, but is for you all that are not here. He specifically says for you all that are not here. In other words, your sons, your grandsons, your great-grandsons, even if you have 99%, you're a descendant. Just a small percentage, you're a descendant. Or if you're grafted in, when you're grafted into the family by the blood of Messiah and through baptism, then even if you were a Gentile, like Paul says in Ephesians 2, you were a Gentile, now you are part of the family, you are in the family, you are part of that, and so this applies to you too. Don't say, well, I'm a Gentile, so that's for them. I don't have to do this. No, once you accept Messiah, you're in the familia. You're in the familia, and there's only one familia, and that's the familia of Messiah. It will be a day of remembrance for you all, and you must celebrate it as a moed, as a feast in Yahweh's honor. In whose honor? Israel's honor? Jewish honor? Christian honor? Baptist, Catholic, whatever honor? No, in Yahweh's honor. For all generations, you are to declare it a day of festival forever. And how long is forever? Until 100 years? 1,000 years? Until Yeshua came? Until the resurrection? Until forever, until eternity. Olam ha-olam is the Hebrew word. Olam ha-olam, to the ages and the ages. Por los siglos y los siglos en español. It's a day of remembrance in Yahweh's honor for all your generations. So therefore, this Passover never stops. Oops. Why has it stopped? Why has it been changed? Why have people added or taken away for it? Anyone who adds or takes away from Passover, the protocols that Adonai gave us, let me tell you, they're going to stand a good whipping at the judgment seat of Messiah, at the Bema seat when he judges us. All the works are going to turn into hay, wood, and stubble, which are going to burn up. Verse 15, for 7 days you must eat unleavened bread. You must eat tortillas for 7 days. And by the way, they're called unleavened wafers. In Hebrew, unleavened wafers. And you could still go to Israel today. And they have these two ways of making tortillas in Israel. One is a round pan, kind of like a wok, and they build a little fire underneath this dome, metal dome, and then they get the tortillas the way we do. They roll them the same way Gramita used to do it, and they put them on this dome, and then they turn them over the same way. Or else they put them in a little, like a pizza thing, and in a little oven, and they put the tortilla on top of that little pizza shovel, and they put it in there. They wait, they turn it over, they get, and all of a sudden the tortillas over there are really that big. They're giant. Okay. You must celebrate it as a feast in Yahweh's honor for all generations. You are to declare it a day of festival forever. So now, I declare that when Passover comes this year, and we're still waiting, when is it? I don't know. We don't know. And please don't go to a Jewish rabbinic calendar. That'll tell you that Passover, I believe they're saying it's March 30th, the rabbinical calendar, I think is saying. I don't know. But if you don't go by the rabbinical calendar, because what do? They add. They go by a calendar that is based on the conjunction of the moon, not on the sighted moon. So when is the sighted moon going to be for Aviv? We don't know yet. We have to wait. We have to wait for the day and the hour when it'll show up. See, that's what's hard about following Torah, because you have to wait on Adonai. You have to wait on him. Now, people are tired of waiting on Adonai, so they said, well, we can't go by his method. I'll tell you what, let's go by the conjunction. We know when the conjunction is mathematically, so let's do it this way. It's easier. It's more convenient. That's the problem with the Judaisms and Christianities. We do things out of convenience. In fact, I might be getting ahead of myself here, but now that I remember so I won't forget. We are told to do Passover this way. Yeshua did it the Mosaic way. And Yeshua said, as often as you do this in remembrance of me. What was the this? The this was the Passover. As often as you do this. Well, all of a sudden, Christianity today is not doing this, they're doing that. And we definitely know that in 1 Corinthians 11, they were doing that. They were doing the Passover the Mosaic way. Why? Because in Passover the Mosaic way, you have food. And when they were having food, and you have a cup of wine, 1 cup of wine, not 4 cups of wine. I'll show you guys why the 4 cups of wine came. But you have a taste of wine. But remember, this was Corinth. And when Paul taught them to do the Mosaic Passover, you know what Gentiles like to do? The Greek Gentiles brought their extra little bottles and they got drunk. In fact, they overate. And Paul says, what are you guys doing? If you guys want to get drunk at home. If you want to have gluttony at home, not among the Passover. So they were still doing it the Mosaic way, even in Corinth, at the time of Paul. And one of the things that we have now is Gnosticism and other isms came into the early church from Greek and Roman, the mystery religions, the ideas of Dionysius and the ideas of Mithra, and all these Roman stuff came in. And by the year 200, 250, the Passover of Messiah, the Passover of Paul, had become a Roman Passover meal. And then, little by little, what was changed and for convenience. And now we have, in fact, I went to one of the last communion services that I've been to. It was a pastor's meeting, and they had a revival and stuff like that. So they said, "Can you come?" So just to be a nice Messianic neighbor, I went to their prayer meeting. Well, at their prayer meeting, they decided to have Holy Communion. And they had Holy Communion. And I thought it was going to be, typical Protestant. But no. They had, those little half and half things that you put in your coffee with milk? Half and half? They had those same little things with grape juice. And on top of that, this is a corporation who makes this. They had a little communion wafer. And you were supposed to take the wafer out, and open up the little cup and have the communion. And so they were having communion, so they were getting them and says, "Here, have some of this. Let's have communion." And they were passing, everybody was opening their little... It has come down to that? It has come down to that? I remember when I was in Bible school, and the Bible school kids over there, we were all in our younger 20s then, and just a bunch of long-haired Jesus freaks at the time, and they wanted to have communion. So somebody got some French bread and some Coke, so they had communion with French bread and Coke. It's come down to that. Yeshua said, "As often as you do this in remembrance of me." And so I'm going to teach you men how to do this in remembrance of Yeshua, continuing the biblical Mosaic Passover, adding to it the Messianic Passover of Yeshua, and adding to it the Apostolic Passover of Paul. So we could do a full biblical Genesis to Revelation type Passover that is biblical, not theological, not doctrinal, not denominational, not anything, but connecting all the dots that need to be connected. On the first day, you are to clean all leaven from your house. And leaven is yeast, only yeast. Again, it doesn't say get rid of your rice or beans or lentils. Again, today people add. I don't know why they keep adding stuff. It just says leaven from your house. For everyone who eats leaven from the first to the seventh day shall be excommunicated from Israel. On the first day, you are to hold a sacred gathering. This is the 15th. And again on the seventh day. On those days, no work is to be done. You are allowed only to prepare your food. The feast of unleavened bread must be kept, because it was on that same day I brought you out from the land of Egypt. Keep that day from age to age. It is an irrevocable ordinance. Irrevocable. In the first month, from the evening of the 14th day, for 7 days, no leaven must be found in your houses, because anyone who eats leavened bread will be excommunicated from the community of Israel. Where he be stranger or native born, you must not eat unleavened bread. Wherever you live, you must eat unleavened bread only. In verse 24, it goes on to say, you must keep these rules and ordinances for all time. You and your what? Children. Not just you alone, not adults only, but you and your what? Children. Whenever you enter the land that Yahweh is giving you, He's promised, you must keep this ritual. And when your children ask you, Manishma, what does this ritual mean? You will say to them, it is the sacrifice of the Passover in honor of Yahweh, who passed over the houses of the sons of Israel, but struck Egypt, and He spared our houses because we had the blood. Now we're going to stop here. Passover is so rich. So rich. And I hope that as Passover comes, every one of you males in your house would be able to say, you know what, I'm going to do a Passover. I'm going to do a Passover because I'm commanded to do Passover. Now, we're not doing the first Passover. In fact, there was a second Passover in Numbers 9. And then Yeshua taught us more stuff, and Paul taught us more stuff. And so we must do a Mosaic, Messianic, and Apostolic Passover. And we'll teach you how to do it. Let's stand. Father, there's so much of Passover that we can't even begin to even get a pin drop today. But I pray, Father, that this would allow every one of us to start thinking. I hope, Father, that when each one leaves, they leave with more questions in their mind than answers, so that they could search the scriptures to see if these things be so that they could go back and ponder. We need to ponder. Children, what does it mean for the state of Yevarechecha Yahweh vayishmecha. A'ir Yahweh panav elecha vayasem lecha. Shalom. May Yahweh bless you and keep you. May Yahweh make His face shine upon you and be gracious unto you. May Yahweh lift up the light of His countenance upon you and give you His peace. Shalom, shalom.